Right, I'll work a couple of these, and then hopefully they'll kind of get you figured out how to do the other ones. If not, and you still have questions, just let me know. I can work the other ones too. So on 11, it's kind of tricky because it's asking me to find sine of theta over 2, but then it tells me that theta is 5 pi over 3. So really the trick here is the beginning. You'll need to plug 5 pi over 3 in for theta. So if I do that, I'm going to have 5 pi over 3, and then that's over 2. So again, this could look a little confusing. But if I have a fraction divided by a fraction, I'm just multiplying by the reciprocal, which means instead of dividing by 2 over 1, I'm going to multiply by a half. If I do that, that's going to give me 5 pi over 6, right, because we're just multiplying straight across. So really the question it's asking me here is what is sine of 5 pi over 6? So we should know that 5 pi over 6 in degrees is the same as 150 degrees. So if I rotated 150 degrees, that's going to put me in the second quadrant. Right, that's a 150 degree rotation, which means my reference angle, the angle of the triangle right here, would have to be 30 degrees because that gets me the full 180 to make half a circle. So my reference angle here is 30, which means this is a 30, 60, 90 special right triangle. Across from the 30 is a side with length 1. Across from the 60 is a side with radical 3. The hypotenuse has a length of 2. Now if it asks me for sine, because I'm in the second quadrant, I know that the sine value is positive from my All Students Take Calculus. Sine is positive, and it's going to be the opposite over the hypotenuse. So here the opposite from 30 is 1, and the hypotenuse is a side length of 2. Here it asks me to find the exact value of cosine of alpha, given that sine of alpha is negative 9 over 11, and the angle alpha occurs in quadrant 3. So for me, I always like to draw a picture to set this up. So I know that my point or my angle is occurring in the third quadrant. So I'm going to draw a right triangle in the third quadrant. And here, the central angle, that is my reference angle for alpha. Now it tells me sine from this angle is 9 over 11. So I know sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So my opposite side is 9. My hypotenuse is 11. Now I know two sides of a right triangle. I can find the missing side by using the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So my leg has length of 9. I don't know the other leg. I know the hypotenuse is 11. So this would be 81 plus b squared equals 121, which means b squared is equal to 40, right, if I subtract 81 or move it over. Now to find b, I'm going to take a square root of both sides. So that's going to give me the square root of 40, which simplifies to be 2 radical 10. And hopefully you're good with all those steps. If I need to show more of that, just let me know, and I can show you the algebra to get there. But now I know that my missing side length is the length 2 radical 10. Okay. And I also know, because I'm in the third quadrant, that only tangent is positive for my All Students Take Calculus. So now I'm ready to work the problem. It asks me what is cosine of alpha. So if I'm finding cosine from this angle, because I'm in the third quadrant, I know cosine is negative. And now cosine is the adjacent side over the, sorry, I drew the wrong way, the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So that means this is 2 radical 10 over 11 for cosine of alpha. And having looked, really all the other problems are similar to those. The only other kind of thing you need to think about, I'm looking at 14 here, where it says we know sine of alpha is 2 over 3, and we know cosine of alpha needs to be less than 0. So really the only other thing you need to think about here is we know that sine is positive. That means it has to take part, because sine is positive, that means it has to occur in one of the two quadrants I have circled here, either quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, because those are the only places I can get a sine value that's positive. But then when I am given this statement, cosine of this same angle has to be negative. That's what it means by saying less than 0. We're just telling you cosine must be negative. So if it happened in the first quadrant, cosine would be positive. So I know it's not happening in the first quadrant. That means this is happening in quadrant 2. And then again, I just set it up from there. Sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Find the missing leg, and then go through that whole process again.